Hello, book geekers. I have a special offer for you. That's right, available for a limited time, a free audio download. This exclusive conversation titled Following Your Passion with life-engineered author J.F. Dubois will give you inspiration and entertainment. Available for a limited time, JF tells us how he is making the transition from graphic designer to author. In a field where rejection is inevitable, JF shares his views on how he deals with it, what advice he would give anyone wishing to make a career change, and more. Janine Bay from Montreal, Quebec, Canada says, it is inspiring and entertaining, to the point and worth the listen. Go now, frédéricbaye.com, Following Your Passion with author J.F. Dubois, available for a limited time. Geekers, hello everyone. I am Frédéric Baye, and thank you so much for clicking the download button. I am talking to you from right here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You are listening to the Book Geek Show. That's right, where books and only books rule. I am a geek. I am a bookworm. I am a podcaster. I am a writer. I am a host. I am a friend. I am a partner. I am an animal lover. This podcast is about books, but not just books. It's about fiction and non-fiction books. Books that we love, books change lives, books entertain, books make us grow. Basically, it is a live podcast. It is free every time you download it on iTunes. Please go over there and subscribe. It is listener and fan supported. So the way you can do that is tell a friend. Leave a review on iTunes. That's right. Boost these algorithms, people. Boost these algorithms for more podcasts, free gifts, articles. Subscribe at frédéricbaye.com, on Twitter at ByFred, or on Facebook. Simply type in my name, Frédéric Baye, and you will be set. Hey, on this show, for all the sound bites you hear on the podcast, thanks to soundbible.com and thanks to greatcleanjokes.com for this week's jokes. That's right. Let's start off. Hear this. This joke, I always like, by the way, if it is the first time you listen to this show, I always like to start off with something funny. And this week, this joke is about a rest stop. Listen to this. I was coming back from visiting my son in Miami, and I stopped at a rest stop to use the bathroom. I just sat down on the toilet when I heard a voice coming from the stall next to mine. Hey, how's it going? Although I was quite surprised, and I wasn't in the habit of conversing to the people next to me in the stall, I nevertheless answered him. I'm fine, I said. Thanks for asking. What are you doing? Asked the same voice. To be honest, I was a bit taken back by the brazenness of this fellow, but I would never ignore anyone, so I calmly answered, I'm relieving myself. Then I heard the same voice again. I'm going to have to call you back. Some smart Alec is answering all of my questions. That's right, people. Hey, you know, it was a cute one. Okay, it was a cute one. Right before this week's book of the week is Pet Sematary. And so we're going to talk about this today. We're going to review this book, this fascinating book. If you haven't read it, you have to pick it up, okay? It's called Pet Sematary. But right before we jump into the book review, last week's blog, I talked about a colleague of mine. If many of you read I know many of you read the blog, and I talked about a friend of mine. You know, it's very surprising to me, some of the stuff that guys say about women, about girls, about, the other gender. And I just want to talk to you guys about this because it relates to a certain book that I read years ago, called Getting Real by Susan Campbell. Anyway, long story short, we're at an event. We're getting a training we ate dinner, me and my colleague, with a couple. And, the conversation turns into, relationships. And the woman says, I have somebody for you. And she shows him her picture, and she says, I might introduce you to her. And my friend looks at it and there's no denial that this woman is on the picture. She's really gorgeous. Long story short, my friend keeps talking and he says, I'm very selective when it comes to women. And I went, oh my God. Okay. What does that mean? And then he says, just 3 things I want: a nice butt, a nice face, and a nice personality. I shook my head. I couldn't believe that he said that. And then, the problem with my colleague is that he's been this way since, I've known him for 2 years. I've never seen him with another lady. And he has been this way forever, forever. And walking and driving back to the training center, we chatted and I told him, man, you're like a woman who's in love, who's looking for the Prince Charming. You know what I mean? Somebody who's just, somebody who's looking for the rich, famous guy. And if one of those are not there in the guy that she's going to meet, are not present, well, she's not even going to consider the person. I said, that's how you are. I said, that's how superficial you are. And, this guy, goes to church. He obviously, he says that he talks about how spiritual he is and all that. And I admire that. When I left, I just thought, sometimes I want to put a bag over my head because I look back at some of the stuff I said, and I think I was similar to him, not too long ago. And we guys have no clue about the other gender, and that's just crazy to me. And now I think being in a relationship for the last 5 years, being in a good stable relationship for the last 5 years, and I've been lucky enough to, to learn about the realness of a relationship, how it really works and all of that. And I'm with a mature woman. It's really shifted my perspective on how I was and gave me a real, insight to the, the reality of how men think in this, celebrity induced society. You know what I mean? And, anyway, long story short, I wrote about it last week, and, my friend, my colleague should really read Getting Real by Susan Campbell. Her advice can really bring clarity to men and women, listening. Whether you're single or in a relationship, it really could help you, I think. I read that about like 10 years ago, and it still resonates with me. I went back to it as I wrote my blog, and I was like, I underlined a lot of important stuff. I was surprised, I was surprised by the stuff I did, and underlined. But it's sad that most of us don't get to learn more about relationships from our parents or school as we grew up. And, reading these kinds of books that give you a real insight into the psyche of a relationship of women and men, we could avoid a lot of grief as, adults. Anyway, I talked about it, last week. If you need inspiration, motivation, or entertainment, go to frederickby.com to read it. It's a very interesting blog. The other thing I want to talk to you about on a side note, right before we jump into the book review, as many of you know, my cat disappeared. Went out we let him out as we let him out, every day, and he simply didn't come back. And then this week we put, posts, we stuck posts on, signs, for, to find him. And we got a really weird phone call from an old lady that says, I got your cat. And then we heard a cat in the background. And then, the lady, says that she's making the cat, like, she's hitting the cat, basically. She's making him suffer for it. And then the old lady turns into a young, upbeat voice and says, haha, you got pranked by whatever. Furious, my girlfriend recorded the conversation and put it on Facebook. Anyway, long story short, I just thought, you don't do these kinds of things. And for many of you out there who understand what it is to have an animal, what it's like to have an animal in the relationship. And when that animal leaves and doesn't come back and you don't know what happens, these are not jokes to make. It's like, it's not on the same level as losing a child, obviously, but it's very stressful, alarming, and hurtful. It really hurts because you don't know where he is, what it is doing. Anyway, it was just a side note I need to share with you guys. All right. Let's go to the book review. This week. Hey, I read all the time, and I am excited to share this book with you guys because I know it will entertain you in so many ways. And why do I know that? Because you're listening to this show. And many of you out there need this book. Why? Because you need to escape. You need to get into another world than, work, sleep, take care of the children or whatever. If you don't have children, I don't know, study, whatever. Okay. And this book will do the job for you. It's by the author Stephen King. Like I said, it's a fiction horror. It's called Pet Sematary. I'm sure many of you have heard about that book. It is a classic. And I just, I went through my library before doing the show and I was like, which book am I going to talk about today? Cause today I just felt like flapping my gums. We don't have a guest and I didn't feel like it. We have a guest, but I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to flap my gums. And I found this book. And I just wanted to talk to you about it because it's a book that really, influenced me, really, entertained me. And I still, I read this as an adult, obviously, but it really influenced me for my own writing. And I was one of the first Stephen King books that I discovered. So, let's get started. First of all, it is the classic tale from the king of horror and #1 New York Times best-selling author. That's right, Stephen King. And, hey, by the way, Publishers Weekly described this book as the most frightening novel Stephen King has ever written. You gotta pick it up. When the Creeds move into a beautiful old house in rural Maine, it all seems too good to be true. Physician father, a beautiful wife, a charming little daughter, adorable infant son, and now an idyllic home. As a family, they've got it all, right down to the friendly cat. But the nearby woods hide a blood-chilling truth, more terrifying than death itself, and hideously more powerful. The Creeds are going to learn that sometimes dead is better. Hey, you know what? This book was suggested to me from a fellow writer I write with, and she really put the bar high for that book because she said, you gotta read it. You have got to read it. And she's a Stephen King fan. And she said, it's one of the best books I've ever read about, written by him. Obviously enough, obviously I ran to the local library, bought it, and read it. And my first reaction was, wow. It was engaging. It was really, I cringed and smirked, many times, while reading it. And as usual, Stephen King uses like raw terms, you know what I mean? And I smirked at the terms he used. And it's classic Stephen King. It is a great length. It is a long book. So you have time to get into it. And I was not bored. There are certain Stephen King books, and I'm just speaking here as a fan, obviously. I'm not here criticizing this genius author. I'm just speaking as a fan, but there are certain of his books that I read to me, are just like, okay, it's long. It takes a lot of time, but this one, overall, it was a great length. The reason why I loved it is because, first of all, the graphic, gory details of the people, the situations, it's amazingly written. The originality of his scenes, and, many scenes I still remember, and they pop up in my mind every now and then, and I laugh at the rawness of his words. The issues that the book raised are, first of all, death. Obviously, it's about a dead cat, and you know what? He's gonna dig up. He's gonna go to the cemetery and unearth. He's gonna dig in. He's gonna dig and pull out a dead animal. But anyway, I won't go further into details. It's also about relationships. It's about grief. It's about people's deepest fear. Isn't like death like the most creepy stuff? Like for a lot of us, it's dark. It's just, the dead, leave the dead alone. You know what I mean? Let me read you an excerpt from the book on page 249. And, it's, the main character, Louis, goes and grabs Church, the cat, in the entryway. Listen to this. He grabbed Church and draped it over his arm. He didn't bother much with a broom these days. He supposed that, in spite of everything, he had almost gotten used to the cat again. He went toward the entryway door, turning off lights as he went. When he opened the door, communicating between the kitchen and garage, an eddy of cold air swirled around his ankles. "Have a Merry Christmas." He broke off. Lying on the welcome mat was a dead crow. Its head was mangled. One wing had been ripped off and lay behind the body like a charred piece of paper. Church immediately squirmed out of Louis's arms and began to nuzzle the frozen corpse eagerly. As Louis watched, the cat's head darted forward, its ears laid back, and before he could turn his head, Church had ripped out one of the crow's milky, glazed eyes. Church strikes again, Louis thought, a little sickly, and turned his head, not, however, before he had seen the bloody, gaping socket where the crow's eye had been. "Shouldn't bother me. Shouldn't. I've seen worse. Oh yeah. Pasco, for instance. Pasco was worse. A lot worse." But it did bother him. His stomach turned over. The warm build of sexual excitement had suddenly deflated. Christ, that bird's damn near as big as he is must have caught it with its guard down, way, way down. This is the kind of stuff you're gonna read. You know, it's a classic Stephen King. You know, it's gory. It's provocative. You will, I know you will love it. You know, Stephen King is just a natural at that. Now, as a fan, there are little negatives I can say as a fan. First of all, I just thought that the book was a little long. It took a little time for the action to begin at the start of the book. And at times I wanted things to happen, like horror scenes, and they didn't. I just felt like I waited and waited and waited for the good gory stuff, the crunchy stuff to occur. And they didn't. Obviously, if you're 15 years old, 12 years old, you're gonna, if you read this, yeah, you'll be afraid, you'll be frightened, that's for sure. I read it as an adult. I was moderately scared. I was more impressed with, the language, like I said earlier, the details. Maybe I expected too much from the work, after my colleague suggested, so badly that I read it, because, it's considered really his best work. I mean, it's really considered one of his best work, and maybe the bar was high, but I was a little disappointed, I have to admit, as far as being afraid. It was an interesting story, but I was disappointed in just being scared. Overall, this was a great book. Like I said earlier, if you're a kid, you'll be scared. You'll be frightened. As an adult, not so much, in my opinion. But you'll cringe. I guarantee you'll cringe. The story itself is good and it's engaging. The impact it had on me, the impact that this book had on me. I mean, obviously, Stephen King just a classic. He's just, he's loved by millions and millions. So, his work obviously influenced my writing for the current novels that I'm writing. The first one is The Witch from Geneva. That should be released in March 2016. And the other one is Finding Sarah that I'm working on right now. And I was impressed, like I said earlier, the impact the book had on me. I mean, I was impressed by the terms used. Obviously, it was raw, it was crunchy, it was really garnished with Stephen King's dressing, if I can put it that way. Hey guys, classic Stephen King. Go pick up that book. It's amazing. And that's going to be it for me today. That's what I just wanted to babble today. I just wanted to talk to you. I just want to tell you what's up. And that's it. I want to wish you a great week, and check out my blog, frédéricbaye.com. For this week, it'll be put up probably Thursday or Friday. See ya. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found it helpful. If you want to listen to more episodes, you can visit frédéricbaye.com/podcast. If you'd like to connect, you can also tweet me at @byfred, or you can find me on Facebook at Frédéric Baye Writer. And remember, live with purpose, passion, and love.